mean, I kind of just expect Paradigm to function the way that it has, in this multiple site environment. Our accounting and point of sale and inventory, like this software here, is probably the thing that I think about least, because I just know how well it works in that model. The reality is, unless Paradigm kicks us out, my anticipation is that we'll be with them indefinitely.
So tell me about True Metal Supply. What do you guys do? What's the story?
True Metal Supply is a metal roofing manufacturer. We got into steel siding quite a bit here recently as well. I've been in the metal roofing manufacturing world for about 15 years. I started True Metal Supply about 2 years ago. And I mean, the purpose of True Metal Supply is just to create an organization that really focuses on the customer experience and drives the level of service as high as, customers really expect and want. I felt like there was a gap there, that we're just not able to be as transparent with the customers, with some of the old technology and really just some of the old business philosophies in the industry. So kind of coming in and trying to shake things up and, leveraging technology. That's actually one of the goals of our company, is to be a technology leader in our space.
So what kind of service area are you covering?
Our core business is East Tennessee and Western North Carolina. We do have a national division that sells all over the country, where we're basically manufacturing, packaging, and distributing. But most of our marketing and most of our core focus is East Tennessee, down to Chattanooga, a little bit North Georgia, up to Johnson City, and then over to like Asheville. I'm the CEO and owner here at True Metal Supply. Yeah, so I've got a couple of founding members with me, but we started September of 22, so we get to celebrate our 2-year mark here, which feels pretty cool.
So you mentioned wanting to provide more transparency in the industry. Can you elaborate on that some? Like, what does that look like? How are you guys doing that?
I think there's some models out there that have become everyday practice, like being able to track shipments on Amazon, right? Like that's not super complicated technology, but it's so important to customers. And because everyone is now shopping online and using Amazon, or, getting groceries delivered, sometimes the delivery process needs to be more transparent in our industry than it has been. So being able to track vehicles, being able to communicate, send pictures to customers after materials have been dropped on a job site, just to create a better understanding of, where the materials are and kind of what the delivery process looks like is important. But even being able to send like confirmation links to a customer where they have a chance to review the final material list, have a chance to review the color and make sure that everything is lining up with what their expectations are before a commitment of money or manufacturing is involved, is really important, because the last thing we want to do is produce something in the wrong color or produce something that's custom made in the incorrect lengths. The customer, when they sign the confirmation, they can see the diagrams and confirm that that's exactly what they're looking for, which is really, really helpful. In terms of production and fulfillment, so if a customer calls and says, hey, I think I'm missing this box of screws, we can in real time, when we're on the phone with the customer, pull those pictures up and look, say, oh, hey, we had packaged them with X, Y, or Z, or hey, they're over here underneath this ridge cap. Being able to answer those questions does a couple of things. It gives the customer a ton of confidence that we're organized, and it also protects us from anyone who's either maliciously or not maliciously trying to get materials that they didn't pay for. So it controls inventory shrinkage and reduces some of the liability there for a customer. That's the type of transparency that I think that we're talking about most from our point of sales system.
So I know you all are a pretty new company. Has Paradigm been part of the picture right from the get-go, or how did you make the decision to jump on board with them?
Yeah, I implemented Paradigm for another company in a previous life. So I went from QuickBooks desktop, actually. There was 6 locations. Each location had their own individual server computer. So we moved from individual QuickBooks to a consolidated Paradigm, to the ERP, So during that integration, I became pretty well versed in, what the system can do. Kind of learned a lot about how to build processes and effectively manage the system itself. So yeah, when I launched True Metal Supply right out the gate, before we even opened, we had already implemented Paradigm. We had built our product codes. We had designed our GL and kind of had our chart of accounts, kind of had everything together. So we've been in Paradigm since our very first transaction.
So then you don't really have any before and after comparisons that you can make
No,
necessarily from this side. I guess
Yeah.
in the previous instance.
Yeah. I mean, previously it was all paperwork, and that's why it was so hard. Operating out of QuickBooks, there was no way to let production know what sales was doing, and paperwork would get lost. Or if a customer called and changed a color or changed a panel length or quantity, you had to make sure that you caught it in time, and you had to track the right people down. And across multiple campuses, that was really difficult. But Paradigm allows us, we have 2 offices here in Knoxville. We actually have 3, but we have 2 primary sales offices in Knoxville. And I can say with confidence that the changes that I'm making in the system, even when I'm not at the manufacturing office, are being updated, and I don't have to hop in my car and drive to the other office and make the updates. Everything can really be managed pretty effectively remotely, which is really important for us as we do have plans of growth and expansion.
You touched on this a little bit. What would you say are the most useful specific features in Paradigm, or maybe your personal favorite?
I mean, honestly, if I had, if you gave me my favorite 10 things, that'd be a really tough list to make, because there are so many things that are just really, really good and effective specifically for what we do. I think the 2 things that I think are most valuable for us is transparency with customers and allowing them to be involved with as much of the operation as they'd like. And the other thing is creating some autonomy with our sales reps. They don't need to rely on a manager to make decisions, because we have processes within the software that give them the guardrails that they need to move quickly. Emailing to customers is really, really good. Emailing quotes to customers, anything that helps us be faster getting information to our customer is, for me, is the biggest thing. It all starts with sales. I mean, obviously the production is a big part, it's important, but if we're not winning jobs, then everything else is null and void. So the integration with Century Business Solutions, a payment processing company, is really nice, and we use those payment links very, very regularly from the front desk sales. Customers feel much more comfortable entering their own credit card information on their own devices, as opposed to giving it out over the phone or anything like that. So I think that, being able to be really transparent with customers quickly is really helpful. Fulfillment has been a game changer for us. We had not, in my previous employer, we did not incorporate fulfillment. So everything incoming and outgoing inventory was still a little bit tricky. Now that we're doing that, we're able to label, all incoming materials, especially special order items where the production or the packaging label has the customer's name and the order number on there. We have, our production team doesn't have paperwork. We have no paperwork back in the office. We print production tickets off, I guess, to stick and label onto the panel and trim packs. But everything is very, very seamless, and edits that are made on non-locked orders automatically update back in production, which is really, really nice. So, and then from a dispatching standpoint, our managers can coordinate and build routes, and we now have the app on our drivers' phones where they can take pictures of the delivered materials, which automatically attach to that order. Everything's really clear and easy to understand. And then on the back end side of things, I mean, the financial record keeping and bookkeeping is really precise. I found that to be a really effective tool to see and judge the performance of the company through the reports that are part of the system. So it's sales, production, dispatch, and bookkeeping and back end work. And I could talk about all the benefits. for us, it's exceptional because drawing out custom trim is very unique to the Paradigm software, and the custom diagrams going back to production and pricing consistency, and that's all kind of like really helpful for our sales team. Again, not everybody may have the same experience, but being able to edit, orders, and being able to, to build loads for drivers, and automatically calculating freight, for our customers based off their delivery address, so that our reps aren't having to stop and use a different calculator or ask a manager.
I think that autonomy piece is often so underrated within organizations. Like, yeah, it's a tough problem to solve at times, but once you solve it, the resiliency of the organization and just the flexibility, the speed changes so dramatically.
Well, and scalability, again, for us, that's so important. And, I don't want to micromanage anybody. I want to have processes that just do it for me. And then the reporting will let me know where we need to fine tune things. But it's been, our sales team, they hardly ever have to stop and ask, hey, what do I do in this situation? Part of that's our business model as well. We've intentionally kept a very simple business model where there's not a lot of things that are flying in that are unusual. But the autonomy that the software creates for each individual sales rep to just go and be a good salesman is really, really great. So
it sounds like you were pretty set on Paradigm for this, for True Metal Supply right from the get-go. I know you said, you kind of are in the unique position of having gone through the process twice with it. Maybe speaking to the first time you did it, were there any causes for concern or questions that you had about partnering with Paragon and the Paradigm ERP tool, or what kind of led to that final decision of, hey, this is what we're going to go with?
Yeah, it's going to sound silly. The custom trim detail, the fact that it's so industry specific to what we do, and the fact that Derek and Jade and Anthony, everyone's been so, they know what we do, so we can talk about things very precisely. It's not in general terms like, hey, this is what we need. When we ask for something or when they ask for feedback, we're talking the same language, and that's really nice to have a software support that's so specific to what we do. Before, when we were doing custom trim, when we were in QuickBooks, we were drawing it out and then we were putting it in a spreadsheet, and everyone was coming up with different rates per piece. And that's a problem. You have to have this consistent customer experience if you want to gain the confidence of your customers, especially over multiple locations. And Paradigm allows us to do that, whether it's calculating freight or custom trim or whatever. It allows everything to it allows the customer experience to be consistent across the board.
This is probably a little hard to put a number on, but just thinking in terms of cost savings or bottom line effects of implementing the ERP, how would you say that it affects the bottom line? Any kind of a guesstimate in terms of efficiency improvements, or what does a number look like in terms of a percentage improvement or anything like that?
I think some of the things that I would look at is man hours saved for sure, just in terms of just liaisons between the office and production and drivers. I don't know, if I was to look at it in our current model, we're probably going to be top line about $8 million in revenue. So we're still a very small company in our industry, but I wouldn't be surprised to think that we're probably saving, when you take inaccuracy of orders or changes that customers make and remakes of materials. I wouldn't be surprised if it wasn't 2 or 3%. Of top line revenue. I think it's probably not a stretch to think that it's that high. It could be a couple $100,000 for us in our current model. The mistakes probably more so, custom trim diagrams, the mistakes more so maybe than, running paperwork back and forth. But 2 to 3% of top line would probably not be a stretch of the imagination in my opinion.
That's helpful. That's a great, I know it's incredibly difficult to quantify, especially a counterfactual where it's like, we don't know exactly what the alternative would be, but yeah, that's a really helpful guesstimate. So you touched on this briefly, but just tell me a little bit about the experience specifically working with the Paragon team, you know, in terms of support, responsiveness, addressing needs. Yeah, how's that experience been, for better or for worse?
I like those guys. I like Derek a ton. He's a guy that is super smart, and I really trust him. Again, they know our industry, so that makes a huge difference. The positives are there's a lot of them. They are really responsive. When we ask for something, we almost always get it or get a response to it very, very quickly.
Cool. That's really helpful feedback. While we're on the topic of feedback, any areas or parts of the Paradigm software that you think could be improved or customized to better serve metal suppliers, roll formers, building supply companies?
Not really. Again, I think that they've made the software pretty specific to what we do. Again, when they roll out an improvement or, you know, an upgrade or an update, like the stuff that they're adding is probably great, you know, but like I don't see it as a need until, you know, they implement it. Like they had one change that was really nice, and it's funny because I'd had a similar conversation. The way that we build codes, we have to include a specific color code, you know, to get the descriptions and the inventory to pull from the correct color. And I had asked, you know, a number of months back if there was like, you know, find and replace option like you have in, you know, Excel, and there wasn't one, but then they created one, like a switch color tab, which was really cool. You know, I don't know that this is even a negative, because they're constantly improving the system and making changes to the system. I think one thing that might be helpful is additional tutorials. I mean, there's a lot of videos and there's a lot of frequently asked questions and guides. As someone who, you know, just I've got to do a lot to run the business, sometimes it takes a little bit of time to figure out the new benefits that are added, so it doesn't affect the functionality of what I'm already familiar or comfortable with. There is a collection of tutorial videos, and the ones that they have videos on are really helpful, and maybe that's just my personal learning preference. I'm not one to open a manual, but I'll watch some videos. You asked like what's something that would be really helpful as an add-on. A CRM integration would be really helpful. And again, there might be something that's already there, but right now we are struggling a little bit with keeping up with customer quotes outside of Paradigm. We use another software for that, and it'd be really helpful to have CRM integration within Paradigm, so we never had to leave the software.
Makes sense. So you mentioned plans for growth. Looking ahead, what's next for True Metal Supply? How does Paradigm fit in the picture with that? Yeah,
I mean, you know, again, I have the luxury of knowing how the software works at a multiple site company. You know, the company that I implemented Paradigm app had 7 locations, you know, so I understand how the different warehouses work, transferring inventory and materials. I understand how that works. So our goal is to grow to a similar model. I think that probably in the next 24 months, we'll have 2 additional manufacturing facilities. And I mean, I kind of just expect Paradigm to function the way that it has, you know, in this multiple site environment. I don't have any concerns. I mean, honestly, our accounting and point of sale and inventory, like this software here is probably the thing that I think about least, because I just know how well it works in that model. The reality is, unless Paradigm kicks us out, my anticipation is that we'll be with them indefinitely. You know, I don't know that there's another system. Like, I don't know that we'll grow to a place where Paradigm won't make sense, you know, and maybe there is a certain threshold, you know, that where it stops making sense, but I don't anticipate that we'll be there.
Last but not least, if someone's looking for metal siding, metal roofing, Tennessee and North Carolina. Give us your pitch.
Yeah, I mean, we're a quality customer service driven company, and we have a team and a supporting software that allows us to create a predictable customer experience. It's great to surprise people above and beyond what their expectations are. We find that that's difficult and that's sometimes few and far between, but we certainly never want to surprise somebody below their expectations. So we aim for that predictable customer experience. If you order this is what you're going to get. If we tell you it's going to be delivered at this point in time, this is when it's going to be delivered. And we don't want to have surprises. Again, it's sometimes nice to deliver above the threshold, but we found that that's difficult. So we aim to create a really predictable customer experience. We have the best quality materials, the best quality equipment, and what we find to be the best quality service through software that allows the customer to have as much transparency as they need, have access to as much information as they need, and be able to have documentations and recording of the entire process. And some people don't care. Some people just say, yeah, this is what I need, and deliver it, and that's all they need. Some people want to say, hey, can you send me an itemized list? Can you help me understand what the payment expectations are? Can you send me a payment link? Can you send me pictures at the job site so I can send that to my installer so they can see where everything is? Like, we can do all of that through the technology and the support that we have with Paradigm. And that, coupled with our desire to create the highest level of customer service and satisfaction, really allows us to kind of be a standout in the markets that we sell to.